We are getting to the end of our programming here. This is our second to last talk. So happy to invite Mark Melnykowycz from Cerebrum DAO to discuss DeSci DAO architecture, design, and road mapping.
Very happy to be here in Tokyo. So my name is Mark Melnykowycz. I come from the neurotechnology field and then came into the neuroscience field. So I have a background in building products and then also really diving into different DeSci projects and also investing in different DeSci tokens. So I want to say that as a full disclosure before starting. And I'm working with Cerebrum DAO, which is a DAO which is focused on brain health and neurodegeneration. As part of that process, I've been working a lot in thinking about how to design decentralized science organizations. What's really important to bring into these organizations, these decentralized entities, what needs to be built at what time, and then I tried to present this as a roadmap for other people to build out their own projects or to accelerate their own ambitions. So Cerebrum DAO is one of what we call a bio DAO. So the BioXYZ platform, which is a part of Molecule, is a way where we can launch decentralized projects for science. For many of the projects, we're then working with IP NFTs to essentially fund and accelerate scientific research. And we want to build essentially circuitous systems where investment then goes to exits, which then goes back into the funding of new projects within the BioDAO system. And BioXYZ is also launching their Bio Protocol, which brings together a lot of the BioDAOs and their tokens. So over the next year, and next couple of years, I think it'll be very interesting in the decentralized science space, such that we increase liquidity going into DeSci projects and DAOs, so that we can not only launch and sort of automatize the launching of new science projects, but also to enhance the funding of them. And we'll hear more about that later. Now, many DeSci organizations fall into a few different categories, either funding of new science projects, pulling together resources, aggregating data, enhancing publishing, or also looking at fractionalizing of IP. But the thing that I think is most important is that when we consider new DeSci projects, to consider first the purpose of the DAO. Why does this DAO need to exist, for example? The community which is coming together, because the community is the thing which is really giving structure and function and value to the organization, and then how we implement. And so from my perspective, as a product developer or a product owner, I'm really more interested then in how we build out the roadmaps to achieve the purposes that we want to achieve with our organizations. And many people think about decentralized science as a way to, quote unquote, solve broken science. I think that the scientific process is not fundamentally broken. We still go through the same method when we want to investigate the world and to create new solutions, from questioning something in the universe to creating experiments, publishing results, and then sharing this knowledge with everyone. And I think this basically embodies what we want to achieve with decentralized organizations. We just want to do it at a much higher scale with more funding and more liquidity than is traditionally possible with centralized funding mechanisms. So I've worked in academia, also startups, also corporate entities. And traditionally, we start with some sort of basic science idea. We go through a research phase, which requires usually national funding, centralized funding, because we're really exploring what's possible. And a lot of the DeSci DAOs, Cerebrum included, is then focusing on the translational stage. How can we enhance the translation of scientific discoveries into products, which are then ultimately realized as startups or new companies? And this is also a way where we can help to de-risk the launching of products, which might not be automatically taken over by large corporate entities. So that's how we see ourselves sitting into the ecosystem of innovation and technology. And really, we're trying to answer the question of how can we allocate resources and funding to enhance the translation process. So that's really what we're starting to build our DAO around. Now, building a decentralized organization has, I think, some unique challenges as compared with corporate entities or startups or academic research groups. Many of the decentralized organizations follow, or I think we're starting to follow, a particular roadmap where first we define our purpose, we launch our organization, which might include a Discord server or eventually launching our token through pre-sales, public sales, or private sales. And now a lot of our DAOs are at the point where we're either in the launching phase or starting to go into the building phase, where we're starting to build out solutions which are then coming to society. And this will happen over the next couple of years. And I would love to see the point where a lot of DAOs also get to the point where they've actually solved the problem that they're addressing. Because logically, if you solve the problem which the DAO was created for, you could then dissolve the DAO because it's already achieved what it needed to achieve in life. But I think when we think about decentralized science, we should not be thinking just on a 1 year or a 2 year timeline, but really thinking about a 5 to 10 year, or maybe even a century timeline. Because we really want to create scientific organizations which are self-perpetuating, self-fulfilling, and then ultimately self-regulating. So these entities should be able to work even if different people in the organization leave. And that's really the type of resilience that we're trying to build into the DAO systems. But number one is always defining the focus and the purpose of the organization. Many DAOs, I think, especially as they're coming out of a crypto environment, are first focusing on the technology. But it's really important to, I think, first focus on what do we need to achieve? Why should this organization even exist in the first place? So as a product developer, I come at the DAOs from more of a design perspective. I think we first go through a design phase where we research what we want to solve. We start to build out prototypes. We define the requirements that we want to define for the products, solutions, or interventions we want to bring to the world, and then go through the process of product building and deploying. Oftentimes, and this is really, I think, the advantage of having a large network organization for scientific problems, is that many people take over different personalities when they're in different team environments. Whether you're a person who is a researcher or a coordinator or an implementer, you might be the person who is talking about the problem, working on solving the problem, or executing and engineering. And I think these are the values that we're trying to bring together in the DAO ecosystem, because we want large decentralized organizations where people can do the best work at the best time so that we can all have a great impact. And I think this is one of the most important things that we can do if we can achieve it correctly, is to have the right person working on the right part of the problem at the right time. This, of course, is, I would say, quite challenging to achieve, but many organizations are building out new tools and processes to help facilitate this. Either way, if you're creating your own network organization, if you think you have a problem that makes sense to solve in this type of way, be aware that it'll be a very challenging journey going from the start of the organization, forming teams, going through a lot of discussions. Probably there'll be a lot of friction between you and coworkers or other team members, but eventually you come to a cohesive way and a direction forward. And that's where a lot of the design tools come into play to help facilitate this process. So for example, with DAOs, I found the Strategy Explorer canvas to be a very useful and effective tool. This isn't a very popular canvas. There are many other around, such as the business model canvas. The reason I use a Strategy Explorer is because it brings together many different directions in one two-dimensional plane. And we can really understand how we are shifting from what's happening in society, the trends that are occurring that we want to address, the problems that we want to address, and then we can chart a pathway through. And this then can then turn into the roadmap for the organization. But at the heart of it, I think is always important to focus on the core mission and vision for the organization. and then build out how this is going to have an impact and make a difference in society for yourself, for the people you know, and everybody else. And if you can reduce your DAO concept to a few sentences, very, very similar to the way you have to reduce the complexity of a problem for a startup pitch, if you can do this in 1 or 2 sentences and you can explain it to yourself and to everybody else in your team, then you've probably achieved consensus. So I use different methods, such as taking a simple sentence structure and to say, if one thing is happening, then another thing will be possible. And the logical result will be the future. And the future is essentially what we're building inside the decentralized autonomous organization. So for example, for Cerebrum DAO, if the participants of the DAO can measure their brain health and they can understand how their brain is changing, much the same way that they can understand how their weight is changing by measuring themselves, they have a metric to understand what interventions and what actions to take to affect their brain health. Right? It's very simple to say, and therefore this is one of the very simple ways that we then build our product roadmap to try and answer this question. We can also use things like a canvas, similar to a business model canvas, where we can very clearly see our purpose, our launch plan, and really communicate to everyone what exactly is happening in the organization. Because this is usually one of the biggest problems. There's many people, maybe 1,000, 2,000, or even more on a Discord server, and people need direction to understand where the organization is going. So when we're doing then the implementation, understanding the product roadmap for the DAO, I think is really important because it shows the vision for everybody. And it's also something that everyone can participate in. So first going from the research to defining requirements, and then understanding when you're going to build what. If you can understand how to do this and you can have an answer to this, then it's going to be clear how the organization is going forward. And you can go through the phases of design and development to shipping in a more systematic and easy to understand way. And it really goes to one of the big problems of DAOs, which is confusion and people not knowing what the next steps are going to be in the process. So at Cerebrum, we defined ourselves as an organization which is addressing brain health and also neurodegeneration and looking for ways to extend healthy brain lifespan. As many of you are certainly aware, and as many of us all are experiencing, our brains go through huge changes from the time that we're born to the way we absorb information, the way we learn, the way we develop neural pathways, up until we might go through degenerative processes or big traumas in our brain due to injuries. So first at Cerebrum, we focus on the circuitous funding organization, doing IP NFTs to accelerate brain research in different areas, such as interventions for the blood-brain barrier drugs or for metabolic improvement. So we did a token launch in the end of April. We raised approximately 300 ETH. And then from this, we established that treasury, which we can then start to build products from. We also set up a governance framework so that as a Swiss organization, we can have a legal foundation. And then the DAO is a way to essentially provide for governance of that organization. And it's been relatively straightforward to do in Switzerland. And I think this is one of the challenges looking forward to doing DAOs in other countries. If the government is accepting this as a way to build an organization alongside a company or another entity. And I'm really interested to see how other countries will take over and hopefully legalize and make it easy to build DAOs. We also did a lot of work on first setting up our deal flow process. Again, looking for common language when we're evaluating new opportunities that we want to fund. So if you understand that they are really inside the DAO focus or not. And then as a team, the deal flow organization can really be aligned on evaluating these deals in a very similar way. So our deal flow design process is also published on our website, so it can be very clear for everyone who wants to submit a proposal what the process is going to be going forward. And then this is really where a lot of problems can come up when you're executing in the DAO organization. You need to set up these processes so that everyone understands how to move forward, because the confusion within a DAO is probably one of the biggest problems you're going to encounter. We then have set up and launched our product group. The product group is essentially the way that we're now building solutions that are either going to be built directly inside the DAO or building partnerships where we want to bring in new products to the organization. A key part of this is defining a brain health roadmap, whereby we can understand our current understanding, our current knowledge based around how the brain ages and how lifestyle factors affect natural aging, and what interventions we can bring in the early stage to affect it in a positive way. Based on that foundation, we then went to our first roadmap, which is essentially going similar to the way that we described before: user research, define our requirements, define how we can build a marketplace to enhance token staking so that people can get an exchange for the tokens that they're buying and providing to the DAO, and also a mobile application so they can really track how their brain state is changing over time. So in all these places, we're looking at circuitous loops. We want people to get value back from the interaction that they have from the DAO, whether it's from a token utility and staking mechanism, or sharing their data, or participating in our DAO processes. Now, we also have ideas for long-term data app architectures, building out roadmaps and architectures so that we can accelerate DeSci. So large language models and AI are going to be a big part of this. One of the most important things to understand is the knowledge base of the DAO, or the knowledge graph. So we also take time to build out the connection points for neurotechnology and neuroscience, where we see gaps, which can then inform what we want to fund and also how we want to build. One of the things coming, I believe, at the end of this year or next year is including then AI agents, so that we can take the knowledge that we have, start to automate the research processes, start to automate the prediction of like what discoveries need to be made, to then understand how we need to build our products. And I believe it will also help people to understand how their brain health is changing and what interventions they can take. And if this type of process happens with DAOs and all these other different fields, such as genetics, or longevity, or research hub, cryogenics, if we can start as a movement to start to build all these automatic science systems, bring it in together with the funding mechanism provided by web technologies and Web3, I believe we can start to have an acceleration of the whole DeSci movement. But it will take time. But I encourage you to think about how these different components, such as knowledge access, tokenomics, and LLMs and agents, can come together to build out the future of centralized science. So that's the basic roadmap that I would like to communicate for you. If you want to build a new DAO, or if you're already in a DAO and you might feel confused, launching, building, releasing, creating value, these are the key things that we're focusing on right now at Cerebrum. And I think right now everyone is trying to learn how to do decentralized science, so it's important to have these types of gatherings, exchange information, and learn and implement best practices. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much.